Now, if you know anything about motorsport, you'll know that one-make racing is about as competitive as it gets. TT Cup is no exception. What's it like to race a TT Cup? In a word, intense. So we're at Nurburgring for the N24 weekend, but rather than take part in the main race, we were invited by Audi Sport to take part in their TT Cup One Make series. There's 20 cars on the grid, 16 of those are full-time drivers throughout the championship, and then there's 4 slots for guest drivers like myself. Now, it's really hard to explain how difficult it is to be dropped into a championship like this. I know that's racing driver excuse number one, but it's true. They're front-wheel drive cars, so they're quite particular things to drive. They're all identically prepared. They're centrally run by Audi, so each driver doesn't run with an individual team. The setup is quite restricted. All the tyres are the same tyre allocation for everyone, so it's as level a playing field as you can possibly get. Okay, so I thought I'd show you around what's been my office for most of the weekend. It's based on an Audi TT, so it's front-wheel drive, not four-wheel drive. The interior is obviously bespoke for the race car, so really sturdy cage, proper safety seat, which is the same seat Audi Sport run in their GT3 R8s, air jacks, the lot. But mechanically, the car is quite similar to the road car, so it's 310 horsepower or thereabouts and about 400 newton meters of torque. 6-speed paddle shift double clutch box, so again that's very close to the road car. Suspension and brakes and pedal box and all that sort of stuff are bespoke racing items. Slick hand-cooked tyres, wets if it's raining. There's a really fun bit about the spec of the car as well. You get a push to pass, so you get whatever Audi Sport allocate the cars for each race. So everyone pretty much gets the same. So at Nurburgring on the GP circuit, we get 15 shots of push to pass, which gives you an extra 30 horsepower for 15 seconds here. And then there's a 5-second pause. And then if you want to, you can go again. It's all a bit PlayStation-y on here. There's a lot of buttons. There's the push to pass at the top, lights, wipers, starter. You've also got an adjustable or active diff, so you can switch off the traction control, and then you've got 3 different modes for the diff. So 1 is very aggressive, 3 is a little bit softer, so for the wet, or as I've been told, as the tyres are going off, you can come back on the diff a little bit and it doesn't work them quite so hard. Driving position is really, really very cool. You're sat very, very low, pretty much eye level with the scuttle. You've got a detailed digital readout here with lots of different pages, but basically you get all the information you need. Warnings will come up, the shift lights as well. It's quite difficult to see out of because when you're strapped in, your head's right back here between the safety sections of the seat, and because you're low, your view with the mirrors are quite restricted, which, as you'll see from race 1 and race 2, it makes the tight chicanes here really quite difficult. But the racing, once the race starts, well, it's every man for himself, really. So we'll maybe look at some footage from race 1 and I can talk you through what happened. So race 1, I qualified in 13th, which I wasn't particularly pleased with, but actually, given the level of competition and unfamiliarity with the car, and it being a one-make car and all the other racing driver excuses I can possibly think of, it wasn't a bad effort. But you're right in the thick of it, and Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit in N24 configuration has a horrible first couple of corners. It's a really tight funnel. Everyone knew it was going to be difficult. We were told to try and make space for one another, but inevitably lots of cars hit one another. I got caught in something of a pincer movement in the first part of the corner, and then I got hit hard in the rear and the second part, which spun me round, and I was literally dead last. I was even behind the safety car at one point. So you can imagine my mood was pretty black, but that's often a good way of finding a bit of aggression and finding a bit of speed, and that's how it turned out. Actually, I had a horrible first couple of corners, but the rest of the race was an absolute blast. I had some clear space, I had some cars that I knew I was quicker than to catch and pass. I got the hang of the push to pass. I was loving every minute of it, and was actually very surprised to find that I'd set the second fastest race lap, so I was just a tenth off the quickest guys. And given some of those are probably a third of my age and have been karting for most of their lives, that's not bad for an old bloke, I thought. So race 2 was the following morning, and I was really feeling really positive about it. I felt like I got my head around the car. I'd had a good race the day before, so I was hoping to get stuck in but not get spun around at the first corner. I think that was probably a bit hopeful, because yet again it just turned into an absolute war. I didn't get a particularly good start. I was probably a little bit timid, and then there was a bit of bumping and boring. I think there was a couple of cars spun off immediately in front of me, and as soon as you're dropped from the pack but surrounded by some other cars, it's so hard to find some space and concentrate on your racing, because you're constantly driving on your mirrors. So after the first few laps, it never really calmed down for me. I was always conscious of someone behind me or trying to catch someone ahead. It's really hard not to overdrive at that point. You make small mistakes, you see someone catch you a little bit, you spend more time on your mirrors. It's just a vicious circle. So I started to drop back. Then I got hit again in the first chicane, which almost spun me round. It was a proper just keep your foot pinned and hope it pulls itself around, which it did. The car was full of tyre smoke and quite a lot of bad language from me, but it bent the steering, and I think it had knocked something out of the rear as well. So from that point on, I had a little bit of left lock, and I had to steer left every time I braked hard, which was pretty exciting at times. So I'd been mindful and tried to keep a few squirts of push to pass up my sleeve, and I ended up using those trying to catch up with a guy who punted me off, and then I was overdriving even more, and then the front tyre started to go away, and then a couple of cars had gone off ahead of us, and they brought the safety car out with 3 laps to go. So although that meant I could catch up to the guy in front, it also meant that Heinz Müller, who, if you're football fans, he was Leeds goalie, and he's absolutely massive. But anyway, he was chasing me for the last couple of laps, and then we managed to crash into one another just before the end of the race. So that kind of rounded my second race off nicely, and I finished a solid last. So there we go. It's been a hell of a weekend. 2 rather different races. Well, both were characterised by a few accidents, but the first race was great fun, and I really did start to get a feel for the car. Second race, well, I think I took more hits than I have in 25 years of racing, but there we go, that's one mate stuff for you. Thanks to Audi Sport, but I think I'm a bit old for this.
To see more track action, why not check out our Track Car of the Year film? And to make sure you don't miss any of our future videos, subscribe to the channel.